What is going on, everyone? Mitesh here, and this right here is my Pixel 4 that I just picked up. And you know, there's a lot of interesting things about Pixel phones, but the main thing that's most interesting about it is, of course, the camera. So there are two of them this year, and the second one is the one that I want to focus on in this video because that's the one I feel like did not get any love from most tech community. Most people did not want a telephoto lens on this thing. They wanted an ultra wide. Me personally, I was actually pretty okay with having a telephoto lens on here, but you know, it did make me question when they first announced this why they would put a telephoto lens, because in the Pixel 3 announcement that they had just a year ago, they said they didn't need a telephoto lens because they had a technology where they could actually enhance digital zoomed in shots instead, and they called it super res zoom. And when I had the Pixel 3, I was actually pretty convinced that they didn't necessarily need a telephoto lens because it worked pretty well. But now that we actually have a telephoto lens on here, a 2x telephoto lens, I thought this would be the perfect chance to compare and see, was super res zoom just kind of a BS marketing term, or was it really convincing or not? So we're going to compare actual optical zoom shots from this phone to the Pixel 3 and its super res zoom shots, because I have both the phones in my possession right now, so I can actually compare them. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get into it.
Okay, so let's start off by taking a look at some of these pictures. So the one we have on the left is the Pixel 3 and the one we have on the right is the Pixel 4, and both of these are taking that 2x zoom. So on the left we have 2x digital zoom using super res zoom, and on the right we have actual optical zoom at 2x. And first things first, 2x zoom is actually not that much, so you're not going to catch a ton of details when you're just looking at these pictures. You're not going to be able to tell a ton of difference between the two because they actually look very similar. But when you zoom into the pictures, you can start noticing some of the details on the Pixel 4 being a lot sharper, especially that text and these signs. It's just way sharper on the Pixel 4 than it is on the Pixel 3. The lines are much more defined on the Pixel 4 pictures than they are on the Pixel 3. So super res zoom is doing a pretty good job on this picture, but it is not able to keep up with, of course, the actual optical zoom that we have. Now, just for fun, I want to go ahead and take a look at what it would look like if you zoomed in as much as you can. So on the Pixel 3, that was a 7x zoom, and on the Pixel 4, that is an 8x zoom. And in my opinion, the 8x zoom on the Pixel 4 looks better than the 7x zoom on the Pixel 3. Like, you can really make out that Levitt sign on the Pixel 4 versus on the Pixel 3. It's still, you can make out what it says, but it's very blurry. In fact, on the Pixel 4 one, I can even make out the little sign that's underneath it that says cranes. Like, that's impressive for a digital zoom that's 8x. Now on the Pixel 4, it is doing it, once again, using super res zoom, but doing it with the optical lens, which gives it much more clarity. Now in this next shot, you can see, once again, if you're zoomed out, it looks pretty good on both of them. The Pixel 3 takes a really good digital zoomed in picture, and the Pixel 4, of course, takes a really good optical zoom picture. But when you zoom in, once again, if you look at things like, for example, the tree that's up here in the front, the tree on the Pixel 3 just looks kind of like a blob of green mess. On the Pixel 4, it's a lot more defined, the trees, all the leaves, you can actually pick out individual leaves, versus on the Pixel 4, on Pixel 3, it's just kind of a blob. Additionally, if you look at the fencing below the tree, you can see that on the Pixel 3, it's just kind of a blur, versus on the Pixel 4, you can actually make out like the holes through the fence. But honestly, it's surprisingly not a huge difference. I always thought the Pixel 3 would struggle with this, but it kind of holds its own with super res zoom. Alright, next up we have a picture with a lot of color, and I wanted to see how super res zoom would affect color, if it was able to capture everything or not. And this might be a little bit different because processing on the Pixel 4 is slightly different than it is on the Pixel 3, but when you zoom in on this picture, I would say they look relatively similar. I would say there's a little bit more contrast on the Pixel 4 one in terms of color. It's just a little bit more defined, especially in the flower to the right, the purplish flower. I would say it's just a little bit more defined edges on the Pixel 4 than it is on the Pixel 3, but I would say in this picture they're very, very close in terms of just how good the pictures are zoomed in. Now in this next set of shots, I really want to test out the dynamic range with the super res zoom versus the optical zoom. And on this, once again, from far away, they look pretty similar. I would say the Pixel 4 is definitely a better picture here because there seems to be a bit of a haze on the Pixel 3 picture, but when you zoom in, you can see, again, of course, the lines are just much more defined on the Pixel 4 than they are on the Pixel 3. It's not really surprising. You are using an optical zoom versus a digital zoom, but you can see that it clearly makes a difference whether you have optical zooming versus digital zooming. I still think the Pixel 3 did a good job here, but just it can't really hold a candle to what the Pixel 4 is doing with the optical zoom. And finally, the last picture is the one that surprised me the most. In low light situations, I had just assumed that super res zoom would not work as well as the optical sensor on the Pixel 4, but to my surprise, it actually worked really well compared to the Pixel 4 pictures. In fact, if you look at these, even zoomed in, it's really hard to tell the difference between the two pictures. They just look so similar. Now both of these pictures were taken with night sight off though, just in case the Pixel 4 has slightly better night sight than the Pixel 3 does. I'm going to be doing an in-depth comparison between the two so you guys can make sure you're subscribed so you guys don't miss that. But right now, just comparing the super res zoom to the optical zoom, I gotta say, in low light conditions, it seems pretty even.
Alright, so there you guys have it. That is what the comparison is between the actual optical zoom on here versus the Pixel 3's digital zoom. And you know, it's not very surprising. Of course, the actual optical zoom sensor is better in taking 2x shots. But what's really surprising is how good the 8x shots are from this phone versus like they are from the Pixel 3. So the secondary sensor is actually really helping, especially if you want to get even closer to a subject than the 2x can allow, because the super res zoom is still working on this phone just at longer focal lengths, and that's kind of nice to have. Now, would it have been nice to have an ultra wide? Of course it would. Like, I would love to have 3 cameras on this instead of 2, and I think that would have just made more sense. But I mean, this is Google and Pixel, and they never do what we expect them to do. But yeah, I'm actually particularly happy with this. I'm still think super res zoom is actually a pretty cool technology. And it does work relatively well, so that's kind of awesome. But yeah, with that, that's pretty much it for this video. Like this one if you liked it, subscribe if you guys loved it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.